welcome to this interview with my very special guest, Courtney Bailey. And hello and welcome, Courtney, in our club full of successful female ELT entrepreneurs.
Hey, thank you for having me.
It's a pleasure. You are a language teacher, a teacher trainer, and now also a PhD student.
Yes.
So I cannot wait to talk to you about this very important topic, native speakerism.
Exactly.
And introduce you, who I now consider my new friend and colleague, to my ladies in our club. And then hopefully later we can share this interview, as I promised, in the Successful Women in ELT on LinkedIn, in the group where we're both together as well. Would you please introduce yourself a little bit and tell us about you becoming a language teacher, because this is obviously a club full of language teachers, and teacher trainer.
Of course. So again, my name is Courtney Bailey, and I actually come from San Diego, California, although currently I reside in Lexington, South Carolina. But I also spend a lot of time in Izmir, Turkey, because I was teaching there for 3 years as English as a foreign language. Before getting into English as a foreign language, I started teaching Spanish, K-12 level Spanish. So I taught that for years and years, and I loved it. But then I thought I wanted to, switch over, and I wanted the opportunity to live abroad. And so I thought, okay, I'm going to earn my TEFL certificate and really make this work. So the rest is history after that. I have my undergrad degree in Spanish. My master's degree is in curriculum and instruction with concentration in English to speakers of other languages. And hopefully my PhD will be earned soon, and it will be in English as a foreign language.
Yes, it will be very soon, right?
Hopefully, yes.
So, Courtney, how did you become interested in the topic that we are going to talk about today, which is native speakerism? And what is native speakerism?
Very good question. So, native speakerism is the idea that people that have learned English, where it's outside of their primary language, that they are not the example, or rather, I should say, people that come from the inner varieties of English, so people from the United States, England, New Zealand, those people kind of set the tone, or are seen as models within the English language teaching field. So it automatically sets up a dichotomy. And so what we're trying to do is challenge this idea, because that is actually false. And so we talk about the native speaker fallacy. There's a lot of language, a lot of jargon that's related to native speakerism. And it's very important that we have these conversations, so that way we can bring awareness and then work to kind of mitigate some of these disparities between language teachers. And you had asked me how I got involved with this particular topic and why it's near and dear to my heart. And it certainly is. And it stems from me going to Turkey in 2019. And I didn't realize that as someone from the United States with an American passport and that speaks English as my primary language, I didn't realize that I had privilege when I went abroad. I had privilege just not only because I speak English as my primary language, and not only because my passport is from the United States, but also because I have a Western sounding name. So there's a lot of things that kind of get tied up into this. But I realized I was working alongside some really great language teachers from Pakistan, from Iran, from Russia, and they're, bilingual and multilingual in most cases. But I realized that as someone that didn't learn English as the first language, I had that privilege. I was seen as the exemplar, the model, the expert, and it made me feel uncomfortable, because I never had privilege before, but I didn't feel that this was something that I was that I should have. I felt that all of my peers, I felt that we were a great group of educators, and we really put forth the work. So when I learned that I was paid higher, that I was seen as the expert, that people would actually try and push me into pictures so that way my school could say, look, we've got this, native speaker. It made me feel uncomfortable. And so I wanted to kind of see what, is this something that's just happening in this institution, or is it just this country, or is it larger than this? And I found sadly that it's larger than just Turkey. It's worldwide.
I can definitely confirm, as I am from the Czech Republic, so I am a non-native speaker myself, and I am a school owner who would employ many internationals. So I'm guilty of everything we're going to talk about today. And I just realized as I was preparing for this interview, in our pre-interview chat, and also making notes and getting ready for this, how engraved in it is in us, in non-native speaking countries,
Absolutely.
that you as a native speaker are something more. So let's talk about it tonight. It's such an interesting conversation to have, and such an important conversation to have. So I really appreciate that you're taking the time to speak to us here. It is a very dear topic to all of us, obviously, non-native speakers as well. Tonight, we are going to talk about a little bit more from your dissertation, your findings, and dive more into your own experience. But then also, I would like to support the non-native speakers, same as the native speakers, with how to go about this. First of all, how us non-native speakers can feel more confident about our expertise, how we can feel good as language teachers, and how you native speakers can advocate for us, and what we can all do together to make the world of ELT a better and more respectful and tolerant place. So let's do that, shall we?
Sounds good to me.
So, Courtney, you are currently a PhD student at the University of South Carolina. And as you just introduced your story, your life story to us, and what led you to this topic, can you tell us a little bit more about your dissertation, what your thesis is, what your goal is with your dissertation? I would love to know, and I'm sure my colleagues as well.
Sure. So I'm just going to make a correction. I'm actually a lecturer at the University of South Carolina. In my PhD, I'll be earning from North Central University. But as far as my PhD, so it is trying to bring awareness to the native speaker fallacy and the disparities that exist between what we know as native and non-native speakers. It's trying to challenge the terminology that we use to refer to native and non-native speakers. And I'm guilty, you said you were guilty of certain things. I'm certainly guilty of it too. And so I really have to slow down when I'm speaking on this topic and make sure that I'm thoughtful in the way that I share information and the way that I research this information. We really can, we are powerful forces, especially in numbers. And so when we can change the language, change the thoughts, and actually challenge a lot of the things that we're finding out there, it really will lead to greatness within the English language teaching community. But I hope that my end goal is to celebrate world Englishes and to highlight the contributions to what I call multilingual teachers for non-native teachers.
You are a native speaker. So does your passport define you? And as an educator in language education, do you feel any advantages that you have?
Definitely, my passport does not define me. I do consider myself a global citizen, and I'm actually quite proud of that. I love to kind of travel. I love being an expat. Living in Turkey has really molded and shaped me, and it's been very formative in my growth as a person as well as an educator. So certainly not that the passport is not who I am. It's just maybe a formality. I don't even know how to say that. But as far as privilege, I do have privilege because of the fact that I'm a native speaker, and I can't deny that. And I think that's what's important to admit, is that it's that we do have privilege as native speakers. We are seen as experts. The thing is that it's really sad, because I know for a fact that even without my degrees, even without my TEFL certificates, I know that I can go abroad and market myself as an educator, and chances are very, very high that I would be hired just based off of my word rather than my accomplishments, my credentials, my experience. So, and I know that's not the case with my multilingual counterparts. So there's a huge, discrepancy right then and there.
So we are called not non-native speakers, but multilingual counterparts.
Exactly,
Okay, I
exactly.
like that.
And the reason I like it too, and the reason why is because when you think about it, nobody wants to be a non-anything. And I think Rachel Sateri, she's really, really big in this as well. But Rachel said nobody wants to be a non-anything. Nobody wants to be second. When we talk about first language learner and second language learner, nobody wants to be in second place. So when we think about what we're really and actually saying with the language that we use, we can say, okay, wait a second, that doesn't sound right. That's not right. I don't want to be second place. I don't want to be a non-anything. So what can we do to empower this group of teachers? And they're multilingual or bilingual.
Bilingual, multi, definitely. And many of us,
Exactly.
speak more than one foreign language, especially here in Europe.
Exactly.
So multilingual, absolutely. I know that the ladies in my teachers club, many of them speak at least 2 foreign languages. So
yes. And I envy that. I think that is so amazing, just to be able to compartmentalize and to really, I envy that.
So we already have one comment, a comment here. Bara says, I love the multilingual professionals description. I've also encountered local teachers before, and I liked that too.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. I might use that too.
Okay, there you go.
Thank you.
Hi, Baru, by the way, nice to have you here. Bara teaches a lot of American English, and she's been to the US several times. So she's very
Baru, come visit me if you're ever in the United States.
She's so friendly. And she's very interested in this interview. So I'm very glad she's here watching us live. So what is some other language around it? We mentioned native speakers, non-native speakers, and how we could choose the words more carefully. So what are some words that you could teach us, some new new vocab that we could start using in this topic?
Well, I think that's the main point, is the way that we refer to multilingual. Baru said local teachers. So I really like that. And this is what we need to do, is have the conversation and say, what can we do? What other words can we use? We're language teachers after all. So it shouldn't be that challenging for us to come up with synonyms that are empowering rather than minimizing.
Yes, absolutely. But since we're still talking about this, people have been talking about this for decades, and the topic is still on the table. Why? It's because still not everyone around the world is aware of this. And I know in Europe there is a law at the moment that you cannot actually say in your job ads that you are looking for a native speaker. So people go around it. But I see on LinkedIn, for example, and you as well, a lot of ads still from other parts of the world. Can you tell us a little bit more about that? What's happening there?
Yeah, so flat out, it's discriminatory, and it could be considered racist as well. And it should not be happening. We should be challenging these things. So I know oftentimes, and I don't mean to be an internet troll or a LinkedIn troll, but we want to hold these organizations accountable for the language that they're using when they're trying to recruit teachers to fill these vacancies. And so when they say we only accept teachers from these nations, why? Why is that? I want them to actually tell me, use those words and tell me why is that? And like you said, they go around it and they'll make up a bunch of things, or maybe they'll say, well, we're actually accepting, you know, in private, they'll say, well, actually it's accepting from everywhere, but that's not what they're actually saying out loud. And it's not fair. So like I said, we should definitely be challenging the organizations, and what we should be doing as all teachers, all educators in all spaces, when we see things like this, we should be asking these organizations, do you hire multilingual learners? Are you basing things off of nationality? There's so many questions that we need to be asking. We need to actually take the time to do that. When we push back, I think that we're likely to see a lot more change. But as you said, this is something that's been going on for ages and ages and ages. So I think that we need to be a lot more intentional and stop aligning ourselves with mediocrity and start aligning ourselves with great organizations that actually see the value of multilingual educators.
Absolutely. And the more nationalities you have in your team, the better.
Absolutely.
And I love working with people from many different countries here in my courses for women. We've always benefited from having lessons with people from so many different cultures. And yes, there were native speakers from the US or the UK or Australia as well. But I think at the very beginning, I did feel they had an advantage. But as I grew in the business and had organized more and more groups and courses, I could see that it is absolutely equal. And then I could see my own colleagues from the Czech Republic that we really are all the same, because it's the language we bring, the culture we bring. There is so much more than the vocab only. But schools like that who will put out these adverts, and even here, I would say still, they will simply tell you it's because the students want it.
Exactly.
And that's where it starts, right?
It does. So the stakeholders, right? So we're talking about the students, we're talking about the parents, we're also talking about those responsible for hireability. So that would be the department heads, the HR team. You know, there's a lot of pressure, because this is, at the end of the day, they're able to use or exploit native English teachers as a marketing tool to say, look who we have, you know? And so it actually starts with educating students and educating parents to say that really the goal is to be able to speak and to be able to be understood and to understand other people. So what we're doing when we're only putting native speakers in front of these students is saying, you'll never be able to obtain the proficiency of a native speaker or even a highly proficient speaker. You'll never be able to teach this. And to me, and I always say this, representation in academia is extremely important. And so if we don't have multilingual teachers in front of these students who may endeavor to become educators themselves, that's counterproductive to what we're saying. Then learn this language, but you'll never be like this person. You know, it doesn't seem right. It seems so off. And so, like I said, it does start with educating parents and students as the stakeholders.
And I think if we multilingual teachers, now I'll start using it, if we talk about it with our students and actually show a lot of vulnerability in that topic, and not by saying, oh, I know I'm not perfect, not things like that, but really showing them that I've been there, and I'm still there. I also don't know everything, and I will never be native-like. But maybe I have other goals. Maybe my goals are not to sound native-like, but to be able to give a presentation in front of 100 people and feel okay about it. And okay, what if I make a few mistakes here and there, or in an interview online like this? So what?
Exactly.
So what? And if we model that as non-native speakers, it's just so much easier at the moment to say that for me. I
No,
hope.
well, and I understand.
Okay.
I understand.
Yeah. So if we model that, if we say, yes, I know what it feels like, and this is how I learned it. I think this is the biggest advantage of us
Exactly.
local teachers, as Farah said, is that we know what challenges we once went through.
Exactly.
So probably the students will go through them as well, and native speakers don't know that very often.
Exactly. And you hit the nail on the head, Nina, because you know, I always ask my students at the beginning of every semester, what can I do to help you? You know, you need to advocate for yourself. So what can I do to help you? And what's going to be most challenging for you in this course? Because I want to see where their head is at. And so many times my students, especially when I was in Turkey, they say, the fact that you don't know Turkish, that's going to be most challenging for me. And I had to humble myself in that moment, because yes, I feel confident in teaching English. I have the pedagogy, I have the experience and the practice, but I cannot empathize with them. I cannot help them with the collocations, and I can't make those connections with their own language the way that a Turkish English teacher could. And so I thought, wow, that is so remarkable. They're so right about that. So there are some, you know, some contributions, a lot of contributions that multilingual teachers have that monolingual teachers cannot. And we need to be highlighting these things. And I think this is another way that we empower our students. They can actually connect with them in their own language. And we need to stop the monolingual thing. So many times they're like, you can't speak, you know, you can't speak the native language, you can't speak any other language, it has to be English. But that, I think, is to the detriment of the teachers as well as the students. So I think that we need to change our approach to teaching English.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you probably remembered your own days of teaching Spanish, right?
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. So, and I loved, and that's why I love teaching Spanish, is because it's like, I've been there. I know exactly what you're going through. You know, the vocabulary, the, you know, listening, speaking, reading, writing, the grammar, everything. I understand the strategies that are necessary in order to learn this language, especially as an English speaker. So I could deliver that effectively to my students. And I think that they really could respect me because of the fact that they realize that I had to sit in the same seat that they were in. I can empathize with them, and I can help them with those strategies that are sometimes very hard to grasp.
Yeah. And I love this comment we have here from Bara. She says, even as a native speaker, I wouldn't want to be reduced only to my nationality. I'd want to be hired first and foremost for being a good teacher.
Exactly. That's it. That's it. And I see it all the time. I'd rather stand on my credentials and my experience rather than on my passport and my language. So that's exactly right. And I hope, I want everybody to feel like that. You know, I take a lot of pride in being a quality educator, you know, and I want to go 110% for my students at all times, and not just my students, but for my counterparts, whether they're multilingual or monolingual. And I think that we complement one another, we build and we learn from one another. So we should be open to reflection at all times. But I love that comment that she made, absolutely.
And that just makes me comment on one more layer here, and that's, hey, native speakers are often paid higher. And
Yeah.
I was guilty of that in the past as well. They are paid higher than the non-native speakers.
Exactly.
How unfair is that?
That's extremely unfair, you know, because what you're doing then is you're quantifying it. You're putting a value on native speakerism versus non-native speakerism. And that's not fair, because there's so many contributions. And like I said, I could go somewhere and probably not even have the pedagogy, probably not even have the experience, and probably still be paid that same amount of money. But yet my multilingual counterparts have to really prove themselves. And I think that's why there's a lack of confidence among so many people in that category, because the fact that there's so many organizations that say you're not worth what this person is worth. That's wrong.
But anyways, I'm sure there are some advantages of having a native speaker teach you. What are they? What is it that students want that they get from native speakers and think they cannot and probably cannot get from us? And it's okay to speak about it, right?
Yeah, no, and it absolutely is. We talk about products, practices, and perspectives in language teaching, not just in English language teaching, but in language teaching in general. And so I can speak to the perspective of being an American person, a woman of color. There's so many things that I can bring to the table that will help my students understand about my nation, about who I am personally. What other privileges? I benefit from just my own intuition. I've grown up with this language, so I don't have to really second guess myself, you know, and I have a lot more freedom in planning my lessons. I don't necessarily have to put my lesson plan in front of my department head and say, here, will you check this? Because they trust that it's going to be, that it's going to be correct and accurate. I also have a lot of autonomy in the way my approach. There's no one really coming in to observe or check my classes. They trust me as an expert, which feels really good, but I want those same graces to be extended to my multilingual counterparts.
Yeah. Hello, Karen. We have Karen here from the University of North Carolina.
Hi,
my
Karen.
very good friend. My very good friend who's living here in Brno. She is ecstatic about you using the 3 Ps. What did I say wrong? She says no to something. I said something wrong, probably. State, sorry, North Carolina State. I mess it up every single time. Sorry, Karen. She says, I think we can bring a different type of language. Yeah, what I feel lack of as a non-native speaker is definitely the use of idioms.
Exactly. Yeah.
First.
Idioms, maybe collocations.
Some collocations, phrasal verbs are not the easiest, because I'd have to live there and speak every single day, be surrounded by English every single day, which of course I do try to. I read and speak to people, chat with people, with colleagues, watch something, YouTube, Netflix, movies, TV series,
all that
webinars,
input is so important.
all of that, but it's not the same as living there. And I did experience that, so I know what it's like. And I still second guess myself all the time, of course, as we all do. We have this little conference here in Brno, which I organize, and it's quite intimate, 30 to 40 teachers, and teachers still come there feeling a bit self-aware and worried about what will others think of my English when I open my mouth in front of other teachers. And we just, I think we'll always have a little bit of that. But I suppose you experience that as well as a teacher of Spanish,
Well, even as a teacher of English, I feel grammar is my shortfall, and I'm not afraid to admit that. I have several grammar books that I refer to on a daily basis. I'm teaching online, I'm teaching in the university, and so I want to make sure that I'm teaching the correct material. But we don't learn, as someone that's been brought up with English, we don't learn it the same way as someone as EFL students. So a lot of those grammar structures are very, very, very challenging. And so I do have to make sure to double and sometimes triple check and make sure that I understand the certain tense or, the way that it's put together. And we talk about meta language, language about language. This is something as a teacher trainer with the International TEFL Academy, I really try and express to my students that are, preparing to go out into the world of teaching, is that you do need to understand these grammar structures, because they just feel like, oh, I'll just, say this, and there's no teaching. There's really great examples, but there's really no teaching component there. Yeah. And so I realized, I said, I understand as a native speaker that we didn't, learn it like this. And I can't say that all ITA students are native speakers. We have students from all over the world. But what I am finding is that my students that are from other regions, the grammar, it's so simple for them. And then for us native teachers, our monolingual teachers, it's not so much. So that's actually a shortfall. I shouldn't say shortfall, but something where I am a little bit self-conscious.
Yeah, and we do get a lot of these native speaker teachers here who don't know how to explain grammar, and often the student or the learner knows more about the grammar than
Absolutely.
the teacher.
Mm-hmm. And you're so right about that. I can remember being in Turkey for the first time, and they asked me about, they said, is this present continuous, present perfect? I can't remember what the question was, but I really had to stop and think about it. And I thought, well, it sounded right, and I, like I said, I have the pedagogy, understand these things, but I do have to slow down when it comes to the grammar, because again, it's something that's just, to me, I just get it. But I need to make sure that I can deliver these concepts and actually teach these concepts to my students. So yes, they do come in with a lot of the times with some knowledge of the language, and they challenge me a lot of the times. And it's okay to be vulnerable. It's okay to say, you know what, I don't have the answer to that yet. I'm going to have to check into this. And that endears you to your students. That helps them to realize that you're human too, and you don't know it all. And that's okay as an educator to say, I don't have all the answers, but I'm going to find it for you.
Or it's your homework to find it for
exactly.
me.
We're going to be together. Exactly.
Or if you want to know more, let's just stay after class and we can look into it.
Exactly. We'll see if they stay.
Yeah, Karen says my best Spanish instructors were not native speakers. I suppose
okay.
for the same reasons, absolutely. However, I always say it all depends on the student's goals. If it's to be able to understand a native speaker because their boss is from the US, of course, it's a good idea to have conversation with a native speaker, even lessons, but please with a trained teacher so that they know what they're doing. If you're paying for lessons, it's supposed to be education, and you have questions about the language, of course you can just have conversation sessions, not really lessons, but sessions. But it is a good idea, but so many people these days, and this is why it's such an important topic, and hopefully soon it will be off the table. The world has globalized so much in the past 50 years, and especially in the past 20, 15, and 10 with the social media, with streaming services, with everything that's on the internet, podcasts, music. It's so easy to have sources for English, unlike, for example, during our times during communism, it was very, very hard. It was maybe pop music. And then if somebody listened to Radio Free Europe or some Austrian TV or a little bit of BBC World Service, but that was it. And now, such a different world, even compared to 10 years ago. So you can have all these resources at your fingertips.
Yes.
And still get a teacher who's not a native speaker and move forward with the language itself, and the structures and how you should use grammar and prepositions and tenses. Tenses are always the highest request.
Exactly.
Request. I don't understand the English tenses. Please help me. And then you have a native speaker who doesn't know the difference between past simple and present perfect.
Exactly. But you're so right about it, Nina, because you said, understanding what the goals are important, not just for the educator, but also for the student. If you don't know your what, you don't know your how or your why, you don't know how to approach it, you don't know how to get to that what. So it is important that we express our goals to our goals and aims to our teachers, but then also that our teachers actually can connect and understand what you're wanting to do, or even if it's not just the student, but what is the goal of the organization with which they're working. So are you just a listen? I shouldn't say just, because that minimizes. Are you a listening teacher? Are you listening, speaking? Are you reading and writing? Are there, are they broken down? There's different ways for all of that. And as you said, the market right now is saturated with very rich material that a lot of students can kind of use to complement any other teaching that they're receiving, whether it's personally from websites like Preply or italki or Cambly, or if it's, instruction that's in an actual academic setting. So there's a lot to choose from, but that input directly affects that output. So making sure that it is rich material. But that's also another thing, because so many people will gravitate towards British sounding accents or American sounding accents. And so as English teachers, like in the English classroom, I can actually ask some of my multilingual peers, hey, will you record this recording for me? I want to use your voice as the model, because they should be hearing different accents and dialects and variety. That's so important. So that's another way that we can empower multilingual teachers.
Because these days, how often do I speak to a native speaker in English compared to a non-native speaker? Not that often anymore. On the phone, I'll be with a Greek business partner, and then I will have a meeting in the afternoon with somebody from Bulgaria, and next weekend we have a training, and there are a few Portuguese and Finnish and maybe a few British people. It's all a mixture, because the world is globalized, not just thanks to the internet. I didn't finish my thought there, but also because I always get too excited about the internet resources and everything that's around us, but also people are not living in their hometowns and home countries so much anymore. We're all over the world.
We are.
And so you will hear so many different accents, and now they're so mixed. So why to focus on only British English or American English or Canadian or Australian when it's all international? That's why I would always include a lot of international teachers in my team. One was from Turkey, another one was from the Philippines, another one was from Germany, and we would have a mixture, because I thought it was the most important that my students, my learners, understand everyone equally, native speakers and multilingual speakers.
Good. Very, very good.
And they loved it. They've completely forgot about this disparity, and they just enjoyed every single person, what they brought, the culture. Sometimes we would cook. This is before the pandemic, because I did it much more than now. So that's why I talk about the past tense, but cooking and baking, and maybe going out into the city and taking a tour with some foreigners, and no matter where they were from. And then
that's wonderful.
That really I feel is one of the best ways we can contribute as school owners and teachers who collaborate with other teachers on courses. and we can, you know, make it all more inclusive.
Exactly. And that's the goal, I think, is just to make it more inclusive and to spread awareness, like I said, to world Englishes, dialects. We all have accents. I just happen to have an American accent. Doesn't mean there's no rank or order, at least there shouldn't be, as far as what is appropriate or what's the norm or what's the standard. Should we have rules? Of course, but there, you know, we don't have to turn this into this is better than that, or this sounds better than that. We really don't need to do that. Again, what is the end goal, generally speaking, for English programs or English foreign language programs? It's to speak and to be understood and to understand what other people are saying, regardless of their accent, regardless of their variety, regardless of where they're from. And we need to be equipping students to be able to do this. And like I said, it starts with breaking down these disparities between the dichotomy of native and non-natives.
Yeah, because it's all about passing on the right message. Yeah. So if I make a mistake that will disrupt that message, that's important.
Mm-hmm.
But as long as my counterpart understands me, how does that matter if I made a little mistake here and there, if it's not a place, a setting where it actually would matter, like something more academic, or, you know, I need to negotiate a big business deal, and it is important, the level of my English and the vocab that I use, you know, you always need to see the whole context. So we don't have to be perfect. I would always tell my students who usually wanted to learn English because they wanted to be understood, and when they go abroad, and they wanted to feel better in front of their friends and family and at work, and understand people on the phone. So I would always say, why does it need to be flawless? It doesn't.
Exactly.
It's really much more important how you feel about yourself using the language. Yeah. So I would often build up their confidence much more than just the language.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we should all do.
And we need to be careful about using the word fluent. You know, are we trying to be fluent? Or are we trying to be accurate? Or are we trying to be highly proficient? You know, and so of course we can aim for being highly proficient, but gosh, like who's fluent and what does that mean, you know? And so I think that even when you talked about terminology with with native and non-native speaker, I think that we can also talk about what fluency means and you know, really educate about the breakdown of the proficiency levels, like the Common European Framework reference. We can certainly, you know, break that down. Then also American Council on Teaching Foreign Languages, they have a separate like descriptors as far as where students are. I think that when we break it down into palatable chunks that stakeholders like students and parents can understand, they will follow suit and understand that there's a lot of people that are multilingual that can teach these effectively, given that these are the goals based off of those descriptors. So again, language is.
And that brings me back to our professional confidence. Let's talk about it a little bit more. And as Karen suggests, let's just retire the NNS. All right. She really likes your multilingual speaker instead. So how can we, multilingual speakers, teachers, feel better professionally about what we do with our clients? What can help us build that confidence? First of all, this talk, I suppose.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Align. So I definitely think that that multilingual teachers should align themselves with all kinds of other teachers, whether it doesn't necessarily even have to be in the same field. It could be a Spanish teacher, it could be a science teacher, but we learn from others, you know, observe and really be able to take in what is out there and reflect on what this person is doing and what can you adopt into your own teaching practices and perspectives. What did you really like that you feel like you can take it and make it your own and give it to your students? That's number one. So like I said, connecting with some really great teachers and educators, having mentors. I have so many people that I say, hey, I'm not the most creative person. So I have so many people that I go to for certain things. offer your own services. So I do feel that there's so many contributions that multilingual teachers make. And so be more willing to put yourself out there and to speak at conferences and seminars and department meetings and things like this and demonstrate that knowledge. And I know that so many times we want to kind of crawl into ourselves and we're not willing to put ourselves out there. But, there's growth where there's discomfort. And what I mean by that is if we're not a little bit uncomfortable, we're really not growing. So when we can actually ask those questions and contribute to those spaces, that's likely to increase our confidence because we're growing in that. And even if we say something that's not quite right, or, it's still going to help us to grow because we've been able to raise our hand and increase our visibility and kind of put ourselves out there.
And we should do that. I can confirm that I just realized as you were talking about this, that this definitely contributed to my professional self-confidence as a non-native speaker, because I stepped out of that comfort zone when I was first asked to speak at a conference, and I was so scared, but I did it anyways. And of course, magic happens outside of the comfort zone.
Exactly.
Always,
that's where all the magic
every single time. And once you do it, then you kind of get hooked on it, because you can see that you can, because you always can. And see the support of other people. And success draws you to more challenges, and the more challenges you take on in your life, the more confidence you can build with this experience, and you can feel as equal naturally. So those of you watching this, do you have any more comments or questions, please, for Courtney, because we are almost going to wrap this up. So if you want to ask anything, Courtney, as always, is going to stay here for a little bit in our Facebook group. If you want to tag her, if you are watching the recorded version of this and want to ask some more questions, I suppose mainly about this self-confidence, how we can help it grow, because you are somebody who motivates us as a native speaker, as our advocate.
Advocate, ally, absolutely.
If you could summarize why you think it's so important that native speakers come together and fight for this change around the world, that would be great.
Absolutely. So native speakers have a responsibility to their students, to the stakeholders, to the parents. And so we need to be advocating and aligning ourselves with our counterparts that are multilingual, because of the fact that it creates a better space. And as I said beforehand, I want to align myself with greatness. And so those multilingual teachers are coming in with those practices, products, and perspectives that I might not have. And so I think that if we can collectively create a community that is full of diversity and inclusive, then it's going to help us all become better educators, which will effectively serve our students. So we should do away with this, with the terminology that is dividing, and really truly empower one another, because then we can be the best versions of ourselves for our students.
Beautiful, beautiful. I can see that you are such a passionate educator. What is it that you love about teaching, Courtney?
I like actually learning from my own students. I recognize that, my teaching philosophy is that the teaching and learning space should be reciprocal. So I don't ever go and say, okay, well, I'm the head honcho, I'm the one that knows everything. Absolutely not. So I've got some experience and I've got some pedagogy and, some credentials, but my students are absolutely brilliant, regardless of their proficiency level. They've got just so much that they bring to the table already. And so when we're working together, it's just so symbiotic. And I love going home at the end of the day feeling like I've touched a student, regardless of that's me giving them equipping them, with the tools of language, or if it's just caring about how their day is going. There's so much, it's so much more than just teaching, but it's actually connecting. And I think that's really what I love about it.
Wow. Yeah. You said exactly the same things why I love teaching 19 years in
Oh,
still.
wow.
And
Okay.
yeah, and every single day I enjoy it because I get to meet amazing people.
Exactly.
Not always the same people because they come and go. So I learn
Exactly.
from so many different people with
Mhm.
so many different professions and life stories. And
Exactly.
I sometimes meet with their families as well because it is
Mhm.
such an intimate relationship. Because very often they meet with you more often than with their best friends
Yeah,
every single week, sometimes twice a week. And you talk about life a lot
you
because you want them
do.
to be able to express themselves about what they are living. So
Exactly. It has
you
to be
always
relevant.
ask them, yeah, like at
Mhm.
least in the lessons that most of us here in the club teach, like you always ask them, how are you doing? What have you done in English this week? Can you tell me
Mhm.
more? Because you want them to practice. Yeah, how is work? What's new in your job? Anything challenging in front of you? And they just start talking, and maybe not even their family or friends asks them, and really
Exactly.
listens because
Exactly.
we are good listeners,
And
right?
that's what I was going to say. We have to be good listeners because we need to be able to extend that conversation or to segue into something else. And so we have to be really crafty when it comes to the art of communication.
Yes, yes. Last question. What are you most excited about this year, Courtney? Asks
Ooh.
Anesh.
What am I most excited about? I love opportunities like this. You're in Czech Republic, I'm here in the United States,
Yeah.
and we're having a conversation and we're including other people in it. It's an important conversation to have. So I hope and pray that I'm able to, connect with other people and continue on spreading information, not just on native speakerism, but also on very other important topics. I just want to kind of make a name for myself within this community, and contribute to it in a positive way. So that's hopefully what I aim to do and what I'm looking forward to throughout the rest of the year.
Wonderful. And you are doing it. You are doing it. You're spreading the love. And I thank you so much that you took part in this and came to talk to us because I really enjoy, and this is also something that I am very excited about this year. And I've been doing this for 3 or 4 years now, interviewing educators from around the world and mentors and interesting people with life stories to share, to inspire. And it's always so beautiful. And I love the power of the internet and the connection
Yes.
that it creates. And we met on LinkedIn, and we can do so much together when we build this community
Thank
of
you.
love in language teaching. And it's more every month it's more and more beautiful
Exactly.
online. I'm really enjoying it. So I'm so grateful that we could meet. And now
Absolutely.
I could share you with my teachers here in the
Yeah.
club. He says,
Well, and I have to say thank you to you because what you do is so important, and you are, you're giving us a platform to speak on these very important topics. So if it wasn't for you, it wouldn't be so easy to spread the word. So, I have to give credit to you and say thank you so much for allowing me to have this space to share my thoughts and feelings on this issue.
much love to South Carolina.
Thank
Oh, no,
you.
not South Carolina.
No, 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 South
Yeah,
Carolina. I'm
now
from South
you
Carolina.
are in South Carolina. Kidding. Thank you so much for
Thank you.
taking your time to speak with us. All the best with your dissertation.
Thank you very much.
Fingers crossed that you can finish it soon, and we'll be in touch, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Of course.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Bye, everyone. Thanks for being
Bye-bye,
with us
everybody.
here tonight. Bye-bye.